好，下面呢是我们的泛娱乐巅峰对话的环节。本次巅峰对话将围绕国际游戏企业的泛娱乐之路这一个话题展开。让我们欢迎对话环节的主持人，来自Vungle大中华区销售市场总监 Freddy Chang。对话嘉宾来自 China-Kabam 联合创始人兼总经理 Mike， 来自 Paradox Hungary Andreea 政府，还有来自 glispa Senior Vice President of Business Development and Client Jaeson Hildebrand， 来自 Chillingo and of China BD Sutor。 好，请各位对话嘉宾让我们上台就座。
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to the panel on successful stories of IP, games, and entertainment. I'd like to start off by having the panelists introduce themselves and their background, and then we'll tee it off with some discussion topics.
大家好，不好意思，我的中文不太好，所以我用英文。Just a quick introduction about myself. So my name is Mike Lee. Really glad to be here. I'm the co-founder of Kabam and currently run general manager of our Kabam China office. For those of you guys who don't know Kabam, we've been around for quite a long time, almost 10 years this year, and we actually have quite a lot of expertise when it comes to IP. We're probably one of the best known companies that specializes in IP. We work with all the Hollywood studios on IPs like Marvel, Manway, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, The Hunger Games, Fast and the Furious, The Godfather. So we've got lots of experience with IP, and happy to be here to share that experience with you guys.
My name is Jaeson Hildebrand. I am the Senior Vice President of Client Services and Business Development at glispa. Super happy to be here and on this very interesting panel. I'm a 9-year industry veteran of digital marketing and mobile marketing. glispa is a company focused on providing mobile advertising and monetization solutions. We are based our headquarters is in Berlin, but we have 5 offices globally, including an office in Beijing, working with Chinese gaming clients focused on the domestic market and reaching international audiences.
Hello everyone, I'm Andreea Chifu from Paradox Interactive. I'm a business developer and also running the mobile division at Paradox. Paradox is well known for its PC game, hardcore strategy portfolio. We've been doing games for more than 10 years. We have more than 200 titles in our portfolio. We've been also publishing games from other developers that do the same kind of games as ours. And we are looking into expanding also to new platforms. This is why we are here today.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sutor from Chillingo, mainly responsible for the business, especially for the Great China here. And it's my deep honor to be invited here and take part in this panel. I would like to share some opinions about the IP and the games from the publishers' will. We will share some ideas about the IPs important for your games. And also we want to cooperate with some local developer here. Thank you.
Thank you, Sutor. Okay, so just a very quick introduction about myself. My name is Freddy. I am the head publishing and partnerships at Vungle. We are a mobile marketing solution company, and prior to this, I worked for Sony Computer Entertainment America, which is the subsidiary that runs PlayStation, and before that, I was the director of publishing and business development for EA. I want to start off by giving us some perspectives about how the use of IP has changed from packaged goods to digital downloads and to streaming. When you look at the advancement of digital and interactive entertainment in the last, I want to say, 9 years or 10 years. You know, when you look back when the first iPhone was introduced in 2007, back then on the App Store, I think it was like 85% of the apps were 99 cents or more, only 15% or less were free. You fast forward to today, looking at the iPhone 6s, you're looking at a world where I want to say 90% of the apps are free to play, and making it into the top 100, regardless whether you have a franchise brand or not, is a real tough battle. You know, for me, having had the experience of working for Sony Pictures, EA, to help commercialize franchise brands, and now also working at a startup, I see the challenges that many game developers face. But at the same time, I'm a big believer that, you know, in the days of digital distribution, where it's an equal playing field, since there is no more traditional packaged goods publishing leverage, how one goes about to commercialize a successful IP, regardless whether it's for games or other forms of entertainment, is really about how you build engaging user experience. I like to start off by dialing back, you know, to the first 3 years ago, 2010, where social games were really hot, or when PC games, free-to-play was really hot. You look at games like Kabam, which had Kingdom of Camelot, or Paradox Interactive, which is City Skyline, or when Chillingo first found Cut the Rope. I want to open the question up to these gentlemen of what are some of the key attributes that you think is important for you to build a successful IP? You know, what do you look for, especially if it's an original IP, as an indie developer in the early days?
Sure. I can talk a little about that from the perspective of our first game, which was on Facebook, Kings of Camelot. I think the key thing to think about when you are talking about building successful IP, and I know IP is a very hot topic here in China these days, but from our perspective, it actually wasn't really about building. Our goal was not to build a successful IP. Our goal, and your goal, I think your goals should all be actually to build a successful game. And a lot of times, I think that is easy to get lost. So we actually focus, and I think it's much more important to focus on making sure you have unique gameplay, a deep game economy that people can engage with for a long time, good social aspects that people can engage with and form a community around. I think these are the things that actually what we set out to do. And it wasn't so much trying to build an IP at that point in time, was to build a successful game. Now, of course, when we chose the Camelot theme, we chose it because we knew that it had some appeal to people. People generally know who King Arthur is. They know who Merlin is. It's a story that they can understand with. But it wasn't actually our goal to turn that into a successful IP per se. Now, it has become one of our successful IPs, and we're extremely happy for that, but because it rides on the success of the game and the game mechanics itself.
Andreea?
You know that by asking this question, you kind of force us to lie, because if you tell the truth, everyone releases City Skylines, right? No, I'm joking. So I think there's no secret formula for releasing, for having a successful IP. It's very important to have a strong gameplay. The way we do it, we listen a lot to our community. We are kind of niche. By this meaning that we focus on hardcore games that are highly replayable, that make you feel smart, takes a lot of time for you to learn it. If these conditions are met, then then we can think, okay, then we might have some gold mine in hand. And it's important when you see that to be able to run with it and make it big. And I think all the examples you mentioned were able to do that.
You guys have built some really successful franchises in PC game space too, prior to the rise of social and mobile. You know, I want to take the question in a different context too. Say you're a small developer, with the 8-man or 12-man team. Sometimes it could even be a less than 5 people team. You come up with innovative gameplays like Cut the Rope or Iron Source. How does one go about to then commercialize this IP by leaning on a publisher that you can actually depend on when you look at how Hipster Will brought Crossy Road to the market to be successful? Are there marketing solutions or publishers that you can kind of lean on here that you can go to market to reduce your risk of failure?
So for us, the community is the most important thing, and our community members are our ambassadors. We don't really rely on paid advertising, paid marketing, and we think that once the game is good enough, it goes viral by itself. And this is why also all our games until now, both on PC and mobile, they are paid games.
Jaeson?
Yeah, it's really a good question, but really hard to answer because each IP has its own attributes, and the success of each IP, they only have their own reason. But for Chillingo, we really did publish some game with the IP, for example, the Snowbee Coaster and also the Micro Machines, which are authorized by Hasbro. Compared with the IP's function, we thought besides the user acquisition and the conversion rate, we need to focus on the gameplay itself. That's the key point for the IP's value. The gameplay should not just to copy others' game. You should do the innovation. That if you use the IP but without any innovation, that may be a waste of the IP's value.
Yeah, I think you have to look at the gameplay and also like the originality of the idea itself. I think that one of the things that we are seeing right now is a lot of titles being released of a similar nature, and I think it is important to go back and look at is this content and this gameplay going to react well or kind of complement my current audience? So that's when it goes back to kind of a big data approach, looking at, how do your current gamer or your current players, what are their key engagement points? How are they monetizing? What is their feedback to you? Hopefully you're engaging your players and getting that feedback. And then you're ultimately trying to, launch titles that will have, complementary potential so that you can ultimately cross-market, which is definitely going to save you a ton of costs in terms of user acquisition, marketing, etc.
So I feel like we're saying all kind of saying the same thing, which is that having an IP is actually not what is going to be the thing that makes your game successful, right? It can help, but actually you can't put a good IP on a bad game and expect it to be successful.
The IP comes after.
That brings up a very good point. So I want to kind of throw a topic out there that's a bit controversial, right? Especially given the experience of the various panelists here. When you go on the App Store today and you search the word Disney or Marvel or DC Comics, what you'll find is there's probably 20 to 50 Marvel games or 20 to 50 Disney games, or maybe 20 to 50 DC Comics or Warner Brothers Interactive games. Just because you can license IP doesn't mean you have to know how to make it successful. I think what I love to hear from each of the panelists is, how do you go about to build an engaging experience, right? Really, when you look at the concept of game, what makes an online game fun is really you're building a community. But how do you go about to do that? Especially in Kabam's case, I think Marvel is one of the few franchise IPs that managed to be a top 10 grossing in the App Store worldwide. There aren't many people that have licensed IP from Disney and managed to be so successful. So we'd love to get your thoughts. And then likewise for, Chillingo and Andreea from Paradox, for the hardcore and midcore games, how do you go about carve out a niche? And if it involves some of the best practices, such as using marketing solutions, at what stage would you consider that after you made it a good, engaging experience?
Sure. So you mentioned a lot of the IPs that we work with, Marvel, Hobbit, Star Wars, Disney, all these companies we work with. And you're right, when you search on the App Store, you find lots of Marvel games. But there are certain reasons why, for example, our Marvel game, Marvel Contest of Champions, which is actually going to be coming to China pretty soon, rises to the top is not because of the Marvel name. Like I said, there's lots of Marvel games. It actually is very much about how, when you work with these IP holders, they are expecting you to be stewards of their IP. They expect you to really stay true to the IP and what the customers think about when they think about your IP. So with our game, when you think about Marvel, you think about these movies, you think about these superheroes, and what are they doing in all these movies, right? They're going out and they're fighting, they're doing a lot of action, and that, we really leaned into that by building a game that is essentially a Marvel fighting game. You can create and collect your set of superheroes and bring them into battle and see them actually doing fight. We do this with ultra high fidelity games, and it really, when you think of a Marvel game, you think what these superheroes are doing, this kind of thing is exactly what they expect. And I think that has helped a lot with the success of our game.
How would you go about to sustain that community? Like Andreea, Sutor, do you guys have any advice for us on that, since you all carve out very unique niches of your own with your original IPs?
Yes, so our fans, we have a community of 5.5 million fans. This means people that are really engaged and active on our forums, and we think we managed to do that quite successful because of the content. Of course, they digest the game, they play a lot of the games, but at the same time, they even started to create their own content. So, for example, our most successful mode for Crusader Kings, called the Game of Thrones, is made by our community. At the same time, we had more than 20,000 mods in the first week after releasing City Skylines. So this means that they really love being part of Paradox family. Our fans, they also help us with testing our games. They are the ones that make sure all the historical data in games like Hearts of Fire or Europa Universalis are correct. And they also help each other, they interact with each other, they post lots of how to play videos on YouTube. Yeah, and beside this, what I explained on how our community behaves, what we do on our side, we listen to them all the time. We try to offer new game mechanics and to update the games quite often. We release DLCs and expansions every 3 months for them, and all our most successful IPs are supported also by merchandising, by books, by music. Because when you have users that spend more than 100 hours in your game, then it's already a lifestyle for them. So you need to let them play the game, also wear it, also read it.
Do you think it's like a sport at that point? You're managing like the National Football League or the NBA? These users are really not users, but they're players or fans of your league?
Yeah, we like to call them fans, of course. They are part of our family. I don't know if it's like a sport, we just like to call it a lifestyle, a Paradox lifestyle.
Sutor, how do you guys help the indie developers?
Yeah, for Chillingo, we are different from other publishers because we have a product team. The product team mainly focuses on polish game itself. So when we design a game, especially for some IP games, we will assign our game producer to deal with that product and help the development team to polish according to the user's acquisition or user's feedback. Sometimes we also do some investigation, especially why the user like this IP and what do they want in this game. So our game producer will give some professional ideas to the development team. And the developing, according to our feedback, they can polish this game well. That's the key point for making sure your game IP can be success. Yeah.
Do you mind if I jump in real quick with a
I was
question?
going to throw a question your way on the next one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm just really interested in the panel in terms of what kind of strategy in terms of IP generation you take when looking at the potential of IP across markets. Like, is that something that factors in for you at all? I mean, obviously, part of my job is looking at, the potential of mobile games in each market, and also helping developers, penetrate and maximize new markets. But is that something that comes into play for each of you?
To be honest, for IP, we are facing third-party developer. So few of them can spend a lot of money to buy an IP. But we still believe the IP can be created yourself. For example, our very famous game, Iron Force. When we design this game, it's not an IP game, but we arrange our game producer, help them to polish that, and we make the publishing plan, help them to publish this game. By now, this game already to be a bigger IP, and the developing plan to release the new versions according to the user's feedback. So IP can be created by yourself. It depends on the game mechanic if it has some innovation. We still believe that. Yeah.
So if I understood right, you are asking us how we plan to support our games across new platforms and new countries and regions.
Yeah, and just like when you're building IP, do you look at the potential across markets?
So I think we start with creating a good game for our fans. Then if it becomes a successful IP, it's even better. And the way we do it, we try to be where our fans are. So for example, if they tell us that they would like to try our games also on mobile or consoles, then we try to bring them the experience also there. Or if we've seen an interest from new markets, then we try to penetrate new markets as well.
Yeah, I think for us the same thing. We primarily look for global IPs, and I think a lot of people in this audience will be. I think your question was interesting for a lot of people in this audience because in China you get a lot of IPs that are very familiar here, like Monkey Kingdom or Three Kingdoms, that unfortunately are not as familiar in the Western markets. So I think that's a very relevant question. One thing I would add is when you have global IPs, like for example a Marvel game, you sometimes have to do things to make it the most relevant in certain countries. So for example, when we are going to release our game in China, we are going to promote certain superheroes more than others because these are the ones that may be more popular here in China than they are in America or other countries.
So I want to throw a curveball question to all four of you. I'm a small developer based out of Chengdu. I make a very simple card game, hoping with the ambition of one day I could be as big as a Pokemon card game in Japan. I tried calling Chillingo, but they're too busy, they don't return my call. Or not yet, I'm sure eventually it will. I tried calling Disney to license the IP, Disney doesn't want to talk to me. And then I found Jaeson's company, a marketing solution company. At this point, given I have a 12 people or less team with very limited funding, what options do I have other than focus on engaging gameplay? And what can I do to grow my business?
Yeah, at that point, I think that you have to look at obviously focusing on how you can activate as much organic activity as possible. That goes without saying. And I think there it comes down to really looking at all the key engagement points and listening to your audience and understanding, what aspects of the gameplay that they like, where are there potential monetization options, what are the metrics behind that, and then really working with a very, very educated marketing partner that has a ton of localized experience. I think it's important there to start small and have a very, very close relationship. And in saying that, I mean give them as much data and as much insights as possible, looking at how they can leverage your engagement metrics for optimization purposes, and work with them to build, in terms of the marketing partner, they should be able to work with you to build a monetization plan that, whether it's in-app purchases or advertising, find the right mix, make sure it's a company that has the right technical offering, that, can do the right type of mediation, can cast a wide net in terms of the amount of demand that they're tapped into, and really just look at efficiency and go from market to market to market and build a scalable plan that way.
So let's say I was able to, blind luck, it could be good timing or, cleverness or just straight hustle, get my game from nowhere into top 100 on the App Store, right? Now I'm thinking about, okay, how do I go from 100 to 50, and eventually 50 to 20, and eventually 20 to top 10, which is the promised land for an app developer these days, regardless whether it's games or not games, right? What advice can you give to this panel, to this audience, on how do you sustain your IP once you pick up some early adopter traction for your product or for your game, especially? I don't like to use the word users. It's really about your players, who are your fans for whatever league you're running, right? What advice would you guys give to these guys, especially the indie developers out there who are betting their career on the success of their app, on how to be successful so they can eventually be in a position like you guys?
So I think that everyone would like to be in top 100 and of course in top 10. But you need to know what you need to sacrifice in order to be there. And for example, we at Paradox, we don't like, since we are really niche, and we and our fans, they don't like advertising, they don't like to have their gaming experience ruined by advertising, or we don't like to monetize frustration. So this is why we try to be the best in our niche, first of all, in our group, in our category. We look at the user reviews. That's really important for us. We listen to our fans, and I think that when you manage to have a genuine gameplay and to be in top selling games, even if it's a paid game, then that's a really success. And we managed to do that on PC, and on mobile it would be much more difficult, but we hope to be able to do that as well. So it's not only about being on top 100. You can still make good money and be successful even if you are not there.
I completely agree with you. It's about being the best of your category, best of breed. It's not necessarily top 100. You just have to be the top of what you love in your category. I correct my statement there.
Yes, and to be to offer the best experience for your audience. That's the most important thing.
To be honest, for IP, usually benefit for the user acquisition. Sometimes it also benefit for the conversion rate. But for the retention rate, another key benchmark for mobile game is focused on your game call loop, which we are very, very interested in the game call loop. That's decided if the user still can want to play your game the next day. So for us, we suggest the independent developer don't copy other IP. You should focus on the game loop itself and polish your game well. That's the key point for you to be successful. IP cannot decide your game to be success in your future. Only your code loop can be decided the success of your game.
So I would agree. I think it's a lot of times when I talk to small developers, they're just thinking about that next step. Like you said, how do I get myself into the top 100? But then when you get to top 100, how do you get yourself in the top 50, top 10? And one of the key advices I would say is you need to, at least that's what we do at Kabam, is we plan and design our games as if they are going to live for 3, 4, or 5 years. We're not looking for a single hit that goes up and goes down. And so when you design your game, plan for that game to have a long life and build that depth in your game and plan out how you are going to sustain that game. Because ultimately, what sustains your game, like you said, is your players, your fans. And if you don't think about that stuff to begin with, you're going to find yourself in trouble down the road. And then at some point in a game's life, you have to start really thinking about what you are going to build. Are you going to build something that appeals to your existing players, or are you going to build something that attracts new players? And you only have limited resources, right? So you need to start thinking about that kind of thing well in advance.
Yeah, and maybe just one thing to add on that. It's the idea of you can't force it, right? I think that's important. We definitely see a lot of, occasionally we see developers coming to us looking at how to get from the top into the top 100, top 50. But when you dig a little bit deeper and you look at their fans and their players and the metrics supporting the IP or the title, it may be clear that that's not a reality. And I think that, that's one thing that a lot of the bigger developers keep a pulse on, and I'm sure that this panel is included in that list, is not everything is going to be a hit. You have to continue to develop, you have to continue to test. It's not in my best interest to say this as a marketing company, but not everything's going to be a hit, and yes, you can spend some money in terms of getting to that ranking, but it's going to be short-lived. And so as much as I want that to happen, I'm more interested in long-term sustainable relationships based upon the results that I bring to developers and to publishers. And so I think that you have to have conversations and look at the reality. You have to have conversations about what the competition is doing and what kind of activity the app stores have seen lately. And you just have to be willing to say, this title is not going to work, let's move on to another thing and let's continue to test.
So I think we're running a little bit over time, but I just want to see if there's any questions from the audience. If not, I'm just going to sum up some of the advice from these panelists who are all industry experts in what they do, which is definitely focus on your core user experience, dominate the best of breed of your category, from Andreea. And then from Sutor is focus on originality, not imitations. A lot of times developers who are hungry tend to try to take the shorter path. You think you're taking the critical path, but you're actually shooting yourself in the foot by trying to emulate or inspire off other people's IP, and you lose that originality. And of course, as Mike said, think ahead and learn how to prioritize your development goals and your resources by focusing on the core user group that is your true players and your true fans, and then knowing how to window that and at a certain point knowing how to shift into a scientific approach of managing your IP, as what Jaeson just said. When you have reached that mainstream market adoption and you have reached that majority user group, you will have churn, you will have user experience. You got to learn to listen to your communities, learn to use the various marketing solution vehicles that market experts such as Jaeson's company can offer you for user acquisition and retention to get to the level of success in the top 10 or sustain your growth. I think that's what you guys, right? Right. Thank you very much.
Any questions? Anybody? No questions?